So we are delighted to be here, first of all, and we're absolutely delighted to see so many people from around the world with us here today. So thank you very much for that.
In fact, I'm very jealous because I'm seeing some very hot countries out there, and at the moment, as I look out of our window, it's misty and drizzly. So I am jealous.
Absolutely, we're joining you from not so sunny Cumbria. So, quick introduction: I am Charlotte,
and I'm Emma,
and we are co-founders of Acacia Coaching Development. So we work mostly with housing associations and charities, and our aim is to drive organisational change through what we hope are inspiring leadership and wellbeing programmes.
And as physical intelligence coaches, we are proud to be partnering with the Physical Intelligence Institute to deliver this session to you today, basically about upskilling individual people and becoming more aware of the physiology of our bodies.
So be warned, this is a practical exploration of physical intelligence. It's going to look at how we can use physical intelligence to understand the physiology that sits behind the Facet5 model, offer science-based interventions when we're working with our clients, whether that's coaching, whether that's groups, whoever it might be, and how those Facet5 insights, along with our physiological understanding, can really create some powerful change. So let me just share my screen, and I like to announce that because when I do that, I know your screen very often jiggles around.
And who needs jiggling about at this time of the day?
Nobody. Well, especially if you're in Australia.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a look at, as we said before, at Facet5 and physical intelligence.
We should probably confess and start saying we haven't actually invented anything new. Done is we've taken two of our most favourite models and we've sort of smushed them together.
And quite frankly, why wouldn't you take the power of personality and join it with the amazing technology of the body? And these two models have a lot in common. So they're both data-driven. They're both science-backed. They are both designed to create insight and empower our clients to make change for themselves. They both work at multiple levels for the individual, for the team, for the organisation, and they are both just more and more relevant in this increasingly challenging world that we live in.
And quite frankly, they look brilliant as on the same screen, don't they? The two circles there. Absolutely great synergy.
So we're going to have a look at what physical intelligence is, how we explain the physiology of the Facet5 facets, and how we can influence that for powerful change. So that's our plan for this session.
Now, we do have a few house rules, maybe just call them house rules. So what we would love you to do is, as we said, it's a very practical session. So we want you to work within your own abilities. So as far as you feel comfortable, don't overstretch when we're asking you to do certain activities. Just be comfortable. We're wanting you to be curious, so please use chat and add any questions in there as we go along, and Nicola will keep an eye on that, and we will pause every now and then just to capture some of those questions as we're making our way for the session.
But most importantly, don't believe a word we say. There is loads of researchers, loads of resources out there. Use this as a kicking off point for you doing your own research, doing your own reading. We've got some resources at the end of the session that we'll share with you. Go and find out, use that curiosity and go and find out more for yourselves, because this stuff is exciting.
Just going to pause for a moment, and I'm thinking to myself, right now, there are literally hundreds of chemicals racing throughout our body, dictating how we think, how we feel, how we talk, and how we behave. And most of us operate largely at the mercy of these chemicals and of their reactions without actually thinking that we can influence them. But we can. So physical intelligence is the ability to detect and strategically manage the chemistry of the body to unlock enhanced performance, inner strength, cognitive function, energy, creativity, resilience, leadership presence, and endurance. Wow. That's a lot.
Can we give it a try?
I think we should. So first of all, if you can be upstanding, or if you're happy sitting, just make yourself as tiny as you possibly can. So shrink yourself, absolutely shrink yourself so you're so small, a little bit like a dormouse. And as you're so small, I want you to say to yourself or say out loud, I feel confident and optimistic.
So I feel confident and optimistic.
Confident, nice and small. Now, I would love you also, just to do a bit of a reverse there, just to stretch out as far as you possibly can into a great big starfish, occupying as much space as you can, and shout out, I feel depressed and unmotivated.
I feel depressed and unmotivated.
Oh, you sound it. Okay. So, just a couple there. Just take a pause and add into chat how you felt. What did you notice when you did those two activities? So what did you notice when you were tiny, saying that you feel confident and optimistic? And what did you notice when you were stretched out really as far as possible, saying that you feel depressed and unmotivated? So just take a moment to add into chat.
Absolutely. Misaligned, body didn't match the narrative. Yeah, I love that. But vibrant and energetic when you're stretched out.
Yeah. I need to do a bit more of that. Vibrancy and energetic. I love it, love it.
It's some lovely language in chat.
That's brilliant. Thank you. So actually, we instinctively know that our bodies, our thoughts and feelings and behaviours are actually interconnected. It's an instinct.
Absolutely. So that's physical intelligence. There are, as Emma mentioned, hundreds of chemicals rushing around our bodies at any given moment. And we couldn't possibly cover all of them in this session. So we are covering what we call the 8 for great, or the winning cocktail, which starts with
testosterone. So testosterone is all about risk tolerance and confidence. It enables us to be risk tolerant, and it enables us to be more confident in the day-to-day stuff. But too much of it, and we can appear arrogant. And too little of it, and we can become risk averse. So it's the right balance that you need.
And how many of you are already trying to map that to the different facets of Facet5? So cortisol is the next one. Now, you might have heard of cortisol. You might be quite familiar with it. It builds up in the fight and flight response. Too much, and we become anxious, and decision-making actually becomes quite difficult. But if we don't have enough cortisol, we don't get that kind of impetus to move things forward. So, I mean, even waking up in the morning, we need that bit of cortisol just to give us that initial little boost. So we do need some of it, just not too much of it.
And acetylcholine is one of my favourite ones. I picture it a little bit like one of those old-fashioned seesaws that you see in the park. It's all about learning and memory, renewal and balance. So it renews the balance in our nervous systems after, which enables us to recover, particularly after a very active activity, so intense activity. Creates that nice balance and almost grounds us again.
So adrenaline is the other one that we very often hear about when we hear about fight or flight. So adrenaline, again, is that accelerator. Now, if we have too much of it, we find ourselves moving too fast, and we don't make good decisions, we don't communicate effectively. So we need some of it for forward motion, but we don't need too much of it. Again, very similar to cortisol.
I said this about the other one, but this is also one of my favourites, oxytocin. So you may have heard this one as, dare I say, the love hormone. And I almost want to do a certain voice there, but it is the love hormone. It's responsible for...
Barry White in the background.
Absolutely, I think we should play it now. It's responsible for that social bonding, for trust. It's also all about giving us an extra bit of confidence. So when we are connecting with people, when we're having those conversations, you'll see a different sort of body language. Too much of it, and we might become a little bit compliant and not stand our own ground. And too little of it, and we might actually not take enough care of our social networks, not think about the peers and the people and the clients that we're working with. So you need that right balance again.
So dopamine is all about the pleasure centers of the brain. It's the thing that gets lit up when you get a like on social media, but it also is the thing that motivates us. It keeps us moving in a specific direction. So it's that drive to achieve and to win. And it's also, it's vital for that ability to stay focused.
Oh, staying focused. Okay, I'm gonna stay focused. So DHEA, and it's a very long word, and I advise you. We're not going to go there, but if you want to, you can Bing it or Google it. Other search engines are available. But this chemical is released during specific breathing patterns, and we're going to practice a little bit of that later. And it enables efficient heart and brain function, especially in terms of contributing to our longevity. So, making us live longer, live healthier.
And, the synthesized version is banned in the Olympics. That's how good a performance drug it is. And we generate it naturally. So serotonin is the last one we're going to look at in this session. And this is all about well-being and status. It's the I'm okay chemical. So if you're working, for example, with clients who are talking about imposter syndrome, serotonin is a great thing to focus on because it gives them that kind of inner feeling of stability. So whatever happens around me, I know that I'm okay. And the good news is that it's released not only in the gut, but when we eat good quality chocolate.
Did you say quality or was that quantity? I like good quantity of chocolate.
Definitely quality. So this brings us on to the Facet5 model. So hopefully you are familiar with this. And we've got the Facet5 wheel on the screen with will, energy, affection, control, and emotionality there. And I love Facet5 because of the language it gives us. It describes how we differ from each other in our behavior, our motivations, our attitudes, our preferred ways of working. And when you provide individuals with a way of understanding their personality, with this trusted model grounded in science and this easy to use language, not only do they start to realize their own potential, but they start to realize the potential of teams, of relationships, of organizations. So for me, that insight, that power of having this language to talk about who we are is just incredible in terms of unlocking potential. So I have a little bit of a challenge for you. If you know what your Facet5 family is, please can you add it into chat right now? Just be interesting to see what mix we've got in the room. If you don't, sorry. We would also like to know, what are you most curious about learning more about in this session? Oh, we've got some great.
The one that stands out for me is a chameleon. You're a chameleon. Interesting character. Very good at being consultants, being able to go into organisations and be, very flexible in their role, be very different.
Fabulous. Got specialist recognition, a really lovely range. Okay, fabulous.
Wow, a couple of coaches.
So, and again, if you want to add in there what it is you're particularly interested in, it will be great to see how what we're talking about not only relates to your work environment, but to you as an individual. So, yeah, interesting. Thank you very much.
I mean, you've got two facets, two
yes,
families.
Because of my high emotionality, I move between a specialist and a supporter, I believe. Yeah, depending on what kind of a day I'm having. So we've got these two amazing models, real powerhouses. And the question is, how do we bring them together? And there's decades of research behind each of these models. And we were thinking, we've got 45 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour. What do we do? How do we bring these two together and give you something useful to take away that you can put into action immediately? So we have sort of bent the rules a little bit. We know that in Facet5, you've got facets that kind of, a bit like teenagers, they move together. You find them huddled in corners talking to each other. They do. So things like, will and affection tend to move together, energy, control tend to move together. So we've taken a bit of a liberty. And we have used those pairings to explore the physiology that sits behind them, hoping that allows us to cover as much as possible in terms of the time that we have together. So let's have a little look at some of these. So the first pairing we're going to have a look at is will and affection. And thank you for popping into chat what you're interested in. If you keep that coming, we will cover as much as we can, and what we can't, we will point you in the direction of resources. So thinking about will, so that's the driving force behind the promotion of your own ideas. I've put the definitions at the top just to remind us. And affection, which is the degree to which we are self or others focused. Very often there's kind of a low affection and high will go together. And what we get in this is these, very strong leaders, very determined, following their own train of thought, able to lead very, very strongly and be very determined, sweeping away, everything in their path to achieve their goals. Where there's some risk around this is when it comes to bringing people with them. So that low affection often means that, they're a bit Marmite, you love or hate them. So where you're working with a client who perhaps has a lot of those risk factors and wants to just soften their approach, wants to connect a little bit more, wants to be able to drive change and bring people with them, then that's the chemistry we need to be working with. So if we have a look at the chemistry that sits behind this model. So high will and low affection is very much about the dopamine. So remember, the dopamine is the ultimate motivation chemical and actually blocks out oxytocin. You've got a lot of testosterone, which is that confidence and that risk tolerance that would and kind of charge through challenge. You've got adrenaline and cortisol. And again, we know those are movement, they create speed, they create forward motion. So all of that is happening, that confidence, that acceleration, that arousal chemistry is driving this person and their behavior forward. So what if we've got somebody in this situation and wants to work on the softer side? Then what we're looking to cultivate, what we need to cultivate is the oxytocin piece. The oxytocin, which was our Barry White love hormone. This is where we need to be focusing a little bit of energy, and we can support them in terms of affection and connection.
So we're going to just take a look at how we can actually increase that oxytocin. Now, I'm not going to send you all to the shops to buy a great big bar of chocolate or some quality chocolate. You can do that later. We are going to have, we're going to practice taking flight, the Kate Winslet. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen Titanic, where she and the other gentleman, whose name escapes me, are standing at the front, arms outstretched, and embracing everything that is coming towards you. So this is what we're going to do.
And you are going to do it as well, hopefully.
Absolutely. So remembering in terms of doing this within your comfort zone, no overstretching, but do stretch a little bit. So stretch your arms out to the side. It's like you're flying. So stretch them out. Raise your chin slightly to look up. Nice and gracefully there, looking up. Imagine that you've got a piece of string that is attached to your sternum and it's just gently pulling you forward. So you are opening up your cavity, you are stretching. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes and take a deep breath. In and out. Opening your chest and expanding in that stretch. Do it a couple more times. Deep breath in and out.
And so this will work standing or sitting.
Just absolutely. I was just going to that one as well. So you can sit down if you want to, if you feel more comfortable, but just breathing in and out. Yeah, it's slightly raised and your sternum gently pulled forward. Now, if you're anything like me, your arms are starting to ache.
Okay, so just I can feel the
just gently lower your arms back down to your side. And if you need to, just give your shoulders a little rotate just to release any of that lactic acid that might have built up. But yeah, absolutely, you can do it seated or you can do it standing.
Yeah.
So what's the physiology around this? This is all about oxytocin, and oxytocin is released into the bloodstream through an amazing amount of independent neurons, 40,000 independent neurons in the heart is releasing oxytocin. And that oxytocin is essential in terms of being able to connect with people, being able to bond with people. So if you have clients that are coming to you and people are saying that they're not connecting, they haven't been able to bring their team along with them, nobody's listening, everybody's been left behind, then this is a great one for cultivating that oxytocin and starting to build that trust and build that social bonding.
You can always feel it, actually. You're sort of opening yourself up. Communication, so the act of opening up, as well as the mental and the physiological changes. It's all about embracing people.
Yeah, because if you're closed, clothes like this, hunched over. You know, you're not inviting people to talk to you, are you? You're sort of almost just shying away, withdrawn. So that open posture, that open body.
And there's some amazing things happening in the heart with oxytocin as well. So actually, oxytocin protects the heart, and it also allows it to recover. So there's some just amazing stuff happening with this chemical. So again, invite you in chat just to put what was your experience of that exercise? Are you feeling a little bit more open and a little freer after doing that? So we'd love to hear in chat. And while you're doing this, I am going to continue to move us forward, just so that we achieve our goal.
Yeah, we can share a few stats around this actually in terms of that oxytocin. So the presence of oxytocin when we have got clear goals and focus is immense. And these are the percentages across organizations. So you're going to see 76% more engagement. So people engaging with you and actually just moving forward and being participative. You're going to have 106% energy. So more energy, more drive, more passion. And with that comes 50% more productivity. So they're going to be producing more, but they're also going to be happy about it. And there's going to be a great environment to be working in. So 29% more life satisfaction. So it's not just about work, it's the life satisfaction as a whole. 13% fewer sick days, which is brilliant for everybody. It's brilliant for the individual, it's brilliant for the organization, it's brilliant for the clients, because it means that you can be present at work, being able to support them. And there's amazingly 40% fewer cases of burnout, which is quite crucial during this time, because as we've seen a lot of burnout at the moment. So if we can reduce that through some simple activities, some simple exercises, what a winner.
Well, I pick on a couple of things from chat.
Yep.
So that widening of the chest space, being a little bit more vulnerable, absolutely. And that's how we build trust, isn't it? That vulnerability-based trust. But that feeling of more space being in the community. And I also just want to pick up on a comment about actually a feeling of being relaxed. We're going to talk a little bit about breath work, ironically. And breath work really brings so many benefits. And part of the Kate Winslet, the Taking Flight, is about that breath that you take. So more to come on that one. So thank you very much for that observation.
I feel a song coming on.
Not from me, you'll be
try not to.
Yeah. So we're going to reverse this now, and we are going to think about what happens when we've got that very high affection score and that low will. And we see a lot of this actually in the housing and charity sector. We have people who are very, very collaborative and really focused on, what's good for my team members, what's good for my customers. The downside to that and the risk of that is that perhaps reluctance to enter into conflict, and also that tendency to perhaps take on too much, because you're always putting other people first.
You're always saying yes.
Always saying yes.
Always
and when
saying
you say yes to one thing, you're always saying no to something else. So what does this look like in terms of physiology? If we take a look at that, it won't surprise you, it's the opposite. So we've got a lot of very high oxytocin and acetylcholine happening. And just to remind you that when you've got too much oxytocin, it can result in people just being compliant and being, unable to stand their ground. So that's what we might be seeing, where you have those high and low scores, respectively. So in order to flip that around and give people a little bit more confidence, a little bit more ability to say no and focus on what they need, is an ability to focus on or cultivate testosterone and dopamine. So these are our confidence and our drive and our focus chemicals. So that's what we want to work on in these situations.
And we all have testosterone in our body. Men tend to have more testosterone, but women do cultivate testosterone as well. So we are going to do something called the winner pose. And it's a bit similar to one that we've done earlier, but it is literally stretching your arms out as wide as you possibly can. Again, it can be done seated, or it can be done moving around, because sometimes if you think about people who are athletes and they've won a race, they've been, I don't know, thrown a javelin. You can tell I'm not a sport person. Thrown a javelin thingy bobby, or they've done some running or whatever it is. They don't rush around and go, yes, that was brilliant, I've won. They find the space, and they even do a little bit of a lap of honour sometimes. So you can combine this winner pose with a bit of a lap of honour and just celebrate winning. Now, this one can be done when you've been successful, but it can also be generated. So if you're wanting that extra bit of testosterone, that extra bit of confidence, being a bit more being a bit more tuned into risk, then you can do these activities just before. Now, this one is quite a bold one, isn't it? To do that just before you go into a meeting, yes.
But I do know people who will just nip to the loos and just do a yes.
Just do yes.
Before they go into a meeting.
But we're going to just talk a little bit about a slightly different one that you can do, which generates the same testosterone, but it is a little bit more discreet.
So the other thing, whenever you engage your musculoskeletal system, you're generating testosterone. So you can do it with a little bit of muscle firming. Are
we asking people to unmute?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
I'm going to ask you all to come off mute for a moment. Now, this is being recorded, so we'll say that. But the benefit of everyone coming off mute is that we won't be able to hear what any of you are really saying. It's just going to be a babble of noise, hopefully. But what we'd love you to do is think about a challenge that you're currently having, and you want the confidence and the drive to move through it. And you're going to create your own little muscle firming activity. So it could be a little kind of like, yes, I can do this, or come on, or yeah, let's go for it. Or it might be a bit more subtle. So it might be literally just, pushing your fingers together. It might be a bit of a pushing of palms or clenching of hands. It might be pushing down on a table if you're in a room and you want to be a bit more subtle.
It could even be literally this part of your is that your forearm, this part of your arm here, just tensing it into your body slightly, because you're just doing that muscle tensing of your upper muscles there.
So you're going to combine that with your own positive affirmation, which might be, come on, it might be, you can do this, whatever makes sense for you. And I'd like you all to come off mute, and I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown. And after the countdown, mine is yes, come on. That's what I'm going to do. So you're all going to do your own. So if you'd like to take yourselves off mute, just very briefly.
Comfortable.
And 3, 2, 1.
Come on.
Yes.
Come on. Hearing your voices actually drives my performance.
Fantastic.
I love it. You can pop yourselves back on mute if you like. And again, any comments, we would love to hear them in chat. So this is about just kind of building that focus, that dopamine, that testosterone that just gets us through difficult times and allows us to know that we can do this. We can overcome challenges.
So whilst boosting all of those, it actually reduces your cortisol, doesn't it? It reduces that stress hormone that can be rushing through our body. So just releasing it.
Fabulous.
Don't you just, I don't know about you, but I feel better already. I should have done this at the beginning of the session, Charlotte.
So I'm going to move us on, because that's what I do. And we're going to think about energy and control. So this pairing, we're going to first of all think about high energy, which is what I'm using to move us forward right now, and low control, which is that really creative piece. So very often we get, that combination of people who are very driven, very energetic, very creative, not brilliant at following the rules. Their first question might be, there are the rules, how do I bend them? Sounds like you. Something a little bit like me. Very, very, can I be challenge focusing? So there might be some that window I'm interested in. I think Pat Lencioni talks about energy. So you might find that in these cases, what people want to work on in this kind of pairing is they want to work on that ability to focus. They want to work on that ability to just kind of think a little bit more convergently rather than divergently. So let's have a quick think about what's happening with the chemistry here. And what we're getting with that high energy and low control is a lot of serotonin and adrenaline. We said adrenaline was a speed drug. It's the one that keeps us going. And when you hear people who are high energy talking, you hear the speed of their voice and their words, and you could just hear that adrenaline happening.
Like a wall of sound, isn't it? It's just coming at you.
Absolutely be. And that serotonin is that place of actually, I'm okay with this. I'm okay to go and meet 100 people at this networking event.
I'm confident.
I'm out there.
Yeah, good.
So if you have someone who actually has a lot of the risk behaviours and they want to work on just slowing down a little bit and being a bit more focused, The areas that we need to cultivate are acetylcholine and dopamine. Remember, dopamine being that real focus and ability to perform and achieve.
And acetylcholine in terms of that balance and that just renewal of energy, the renewal of memory and learning.
Absolutely. So the question is, how do we do this? And I'm actually going to talk you through this one because it is something that on my high energy days I struggle with. I have lots of techniques I use, but this is the way I will always start a piece of work, and that's with a centering technique. So if you're standing, just make sure your feet are hip width apart and you've got some good balance. If you're sitting down, just feel your sitting bones, just feel the balance of yourself in the chair. And you might even want to just kind of move around a little bit to find how that balance, feels, which bits of your feet or your sitting bones, how is that weight distributed evenly? So find that place of balance, drop your shoulders. Imagine a piece of string out the top of your head, just finding a nice centered, grounded position. And then breathe. As part of the Physical Intelligence Institute, they do talks regularly, and there was a guy in there talking about how we breathe. And he was saying that our lungs exchange gas. It's our nose that does the breathing. So when you breathe in as if you are smelling the most wonderful thing, whether it's roses, whether it's fresh baked bread, whether it's coffee, just breathe in deeply as though you're smelling something lovely. And what will happen is that breath will go right to your center of gravity. So if you imagine yourself cut in half vertically and horizontally, there's a point just below the belly button in the middle of our body that is our center of gravity. So when you breathe that lovely breath in, that's where the breath goes. And then just soften your focus. So that actually become less aware of the peripheral, more aware of what's in front of you. And actually by doing this, we start to ground ourselves. And we also ground ourselves in the present moment. So our focus is less on time travel, on the future or the past. So our focus not only actually becomes on what's in front of us, but it becomes on the moment that we're in. So by doing this lovely technique, as we start to work, we boost our dopamine, acetylcholine, testosterone, and we get a greater sense of focus. So that's a really lovely one.
Grateful, absolutely perfect for de-stressing.
Yeah, really great. And then of course we've got the opposite. So that low energy, that real ability to work independently, that real ability to connect and hear people with that high control, that preference for following things in a planned way. Looking at you. So our conversations very often go, how do we make the decision? Emma will say, well, these are the rules, so that's how we make the decision. And I'll say, yeah, but we do that differently.
Yeah. So but then you say, yes, I'll follow those rules that we co-created, and then later we'll go and do your own thing anyway.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, control.
So if you've got someone who wants to work on that more divergent thinking, who wants to access the more creative side of who they are, then we can do this. And it, again, won't surprise you to know that it's the opposite chemistry that we've just seen. So with that low energy and high control, there's a lot of dopamine and acetylcholine happening. And what we want to cultivate is that serotonin and adrenaline to give that sense of it's okay, I can stray from the path, and I've got the adrenaline that will move me forward and take me through that. So how do we do that?
I can a bit of divergent thinking. I need a little bit of divergent thinking. So we're going to practice something that the PI, called Physical Intelligence Institute, calls the serotonin swing, and it's actually one of our favourites. I do actually have a real favourite, and unfortunately we're not doing that one today, but that's called humming. So you might want to tap in later to find out about where you can find out about humming. This one is the serotonin swing. And we need to warm up to this one because there is a little bit more movement. But again, move within your comfort zone. So don't overstretch. So first of all, I'm just going to tilt the screen slightly and move back. You put one of your arms just in front, just gently across your chest, and the other arm, if you can, just gently behind your back. So just like that. Okay. And as you're doing that, you want to gently turn your neck to face the arm that is at the back.
So you feel a gentle twist in your gut.
Gentle twist, yeah. And then just swap your arms, swap them round. And as you're swapping them round, you are gently turning your head to face the other arm at the back. So again, you just find a gentle pull, gentle movement in your gut area.
Standing or seated.
So just do that a couple more times, just to warm up your shoulder muscles, warm up your neck muscles and your spine, and to loosen up your gut. We spend a lot of our lives, don't we, putting in our guts, trying to look slim. So just don't worry about it. And gradually speed that up.
Move back. I enjoy this one.
You need a little bit of room. I should have said that at the beginning. You need a little bit of room. And as you're speeding it up, your arms are starting to come out towards the side. It's like a helicopter flying. You can feel the weight of your hands at the end of your arms. So you're just bringing that around, gentle swing, swinging and moving your gut area, which again, I think we said is responsible for 95% of your serotonin, I'm okay hormone. Now, we would normally stop here, but we're not going to stop here because we are going to start to move into creating the hormone for divergent thinking, so that creative thinking. And that is by just spontaneously moving into something different. This is going to morph into whatever movement you like, whether it's a little bit of Tai Chi, you can tell I don't Chi, whether it's a little bit of boxing, just free flow. Bending where you feel comfortable, stretching where you feel comfortable, and just feel flow. Anybody who's just joining us at the moment is going to be wondering what we're doing. We're going to be doing spontaneous movement to enhance divergent thinking.
And if you're doing this and not laughing, then you're not doing it right.
So if you're doing it in the middle of an office, it's brilliant, because hopefully your colleagues will have joined in. So just slow your activities down and just resume back into that comfortable position that you were in the beginning.
So that spontaneous free movement just enhances accuracy for divergent thinking. So we come finally, in case you're out of breath, we come finally onto emotionality. Now, this is one that I am I'm super passionate about because I have a high emotionality score. And a lot of the people who come to coaching with us similarly have high emotionality. So if I put them all on the screen at the same time. So we've got this kind of low score, which is very consistent and stable and confident and optimistic. The risk around that is that, you know, we may not be aware of risks. We may not assess risks effectively. And also you will drive anyone who's high emotionality nuts. So high emotionality, very connected with what's happening, quite reactive, very passionate, has been described as being unpredictable. Actually, the key thing with high emotionality for me is I find people put a lot of effort into appearing calm when actually internally there's a whole dialogue, there's a lot of emotion happening. So it can be quite an exhausting place to be. So this is something that we've focused quite a lot of time and energy on in terms of coaching. So just thinking about what's happening with this body chemistry. So at the low end of emotionality, you've got serotonin and acetylcholine, that balance and the I'm okay chemicals that we've seen before. At the high end, it will not surprise you to hear you've got a lot of cortisol and adrenaline, that fight or flight reaction, driving things, creating speed and action. Too much speed potentially in some cases.
Pushing for other people around you, can't it?
Or
encouraging.
Or encouraging. I was going to say, you do get things done.
Keep going.
So we need at the low end of emotionality to cultivate the adrenaline and the testosterone and the dopamine for that focus and action and movement. At the high end of emotionality, we're really looking to create some calm. So we want to cultivate serotonin and acetylcholine. And we're going to look at two ways you can do that. We're going to look at a technique that is great for your emergency first aid kit in terms of, you know, dealing with clients who've got high emotionality and are just finding it a little bit overwhelming. And then we've got a longer term tool that actually benefits absolutely everybody, but again, just really helps with that sense of balance and calm and finding a sense of perspective and things.
I think this is brilliant because this is answering, I think, one of the questions that popped up earlier in terms of how the winning cocktail sort of influences the emotionality aspect.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to kind of pause on that at the moment, actually, because at the high end of emotionality, you've got a lot of this arousal chemistry. So cortisol driving energy, adrenaline speeding us up, testosterone pushing us on and outwards, and making us very aware, dopamine motivating us towards our goals, almost too much so in some cases. And then at the low end of emotionality, you've got this renewal chemistry, this DHEA, this performance drug, there's acetylcholine and serotonin and oxytocin, just calming us down. So that's very characteristic of that low emotionality.
And I actually had a bit of the arousal chemistry yesterday when I took the dogs out for a walk and I encountered another dog and I basically ended up flat on my face on the floor. So there was a lot of cortisol rushing through my body at that moment, followed by that numb sensation, like I can't feel the pain, but I know I'm going to feel it.
And that can be physical pain or emotional. So we've got a great technique here for dealing with those in the moment kind of emergencies where you've got people who are just finding it difficult to cope with that kind of the impact of high emotionality. So I am going to be the person who does this, and Emma is going to describe what we're doing.
Okay, so I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to encourage you to do this one. It can be done standing or it can be done seated. If you get dizzy or if you have a history of dizziness, I would suggest that you sit out on this one and watch it first so that you get to feel whether it is suitable for you.
And
so,
again, you can do it standing or seated.
Yeah, standing or seated. So, and Charlotte's I'm just going to pop the screen down a little bit so that you get a bit more of Charlotte than you would normally get of Charlotte.
Sorry about
that. So standing or seating, just fold forward from your waist as far as comfortably possible. Relax. I'm going to talk through this one a little bit faster because Charlotte can't be hanging over for too long. So relax the upper body, especially the neck. We carry a lot of tension in the neck. Taking a nice deep breath in. And I should have asked you to unmute here, but never mind. As you are taking a deep breath out, I want you to vigorously shake. So shake your torso and make a lovely long noise. As much noise as you possibly can. So breathing in, shake, and breathing out. And release that tension. And when you feel comfortable, just bring yourself back up nice and slowly. Rolling slowly, bringing your head up last.
Not very good for your hairstyle.
Not very good for your hairstyle, but you can do that one for as long as you need to and as long as you're comfortable to, and you can repeat it until you actually feel that tension has gone and you've loosened up those emotions, you've loosened it up from being trapped within your body.
It's a little bit like shaking a snow globe. So our chemicals are moved around our body with the many liquid systems we have, and they get static when we're smudgy. It's sludgy. So a bit like shaking a snow globe. That just shakes all of that up and distributes the lovely chemicals, dopamine and serotonin around.
Absolutely.
So that's a really good emergency moment. I've worked with someone who actually would just nip into the loo and do that occasionally, just when she needed to get rid of stress and too much cortisol and adrenaline.
Yeah, a little strange noise.
This is, excuse me, a much longer term technique. So this paced breathing technique, I am going to recommend everyone does this. It releases the performance drug DHEA. It is just great for oxygenation, confidence, acetylcholine for balance. It's just a really nice thing to do. And you can really do with around 10 or 20 minutes a day. But you don't have to sit and do it all in one go. You could, the next time you boil the kettle, do some paced breathing. Before you log on in the morning, while your computer is logging on, do some paced breathing.
We call this habit stacking. So just add it on to something that you always do every single day. Boiling the kettle, having a shower, going for a walk.
All that.
Carry on.
So that's breathing that we talked about. Where you're breathing in as though you're smelling something fabulous. And the aim is to create a smooth, even flow in through the nose, if you possibly can, because the nose warms the air, it's your filtration system. You can breathe out through the nose or the mouth. And it's an active act. So the ideal number or amount of time to breathe in and out is 5.5 seconds in and 5.5 seconds out. But find your rhythm.
Which is good if you've got high control.
It's very good. I haven't, so mine tends to be a little bit, varied. But find your rhythm. And the more you do this, the more you will drop into that rhythm more easily. And that DHEA builds over time. So just finding a couple of minutes here and there, so you're building up to 10, 20 minutes a day. You can do it while you're lying in bed trying to get to sleep. You know, it's just a really great thing to do. It's why meditation works, it's why yoga works. It's just an incredible activity. Have I sold it?
And it's one of those things that you do naturally, isn't it? Actually, when we're feeling a little bit stressed, I notice that you always say to me, "Why are you sighing?" I'm not sighing, Charlotte. I'm breathing. I'm letting out. I'm reducing my cortisol levels. I'm reducing my adrenaline levels. I'm making myself feel better. That's why I'm sighing. I'm not sighing because I'm bored. I'm sighing because I want to feel better.
So 62% potential improvement in cognitive function if we make paced breathing part of our daily routine. And I'd love to hear in chat from people who are already doing it, or from people who've taken a couple of deep breaths and think, well, actually, this is something I can feel the benefit of. So feel free to share in chat. I'm going to keep us rolling forward because we are heading towards our deadline.
I'm keeping breathing. I'm loving this deep breathing.
So at the Physical Intelligence Institute, they talk about the performance pathway. So all of this is just a ridiculously simplified version of the complex chemistry of the body. So there is lots more to learn around it. And from Claudia, thank you. Yeah, that breath work, meditation, 2 years made all the difference. I am 100% with you on that. I just think it's transformative. So you can learn a lot more. It's a lot more of a complex model. It's really powerful. We have literally scratched the surface of this. So we're going to encourage you to find out more and give you some resources to do that. I do have a very quick case study, which I'm going to try and do in about 3 minutes. So this is it in practice.
I'm high control. Okay, so I'm timing you.
So we have a producer and an architect, and they're kind of going a little bit head to head. And those of you who are very familiar with Facet5 will kind of be going, oh, yeah, I feel the pain here. So the producer was our coaching client. The architect was the subject of many of our conversations. So you've got this flywheel, so both really capable of driving forward their own ideas. You've got this low energy, so not particularly great at talking to each other. You've got this low affection, so very focused on what they want and need. And then you've got what I think is the best facet ever, because it explains every argument in the world: control. One high, one low. And so you've got detail versus creativity and basically it's kind of waiting for a fight. And you've got very, very high emotionality. So a 9.8 and an 8.2, I think, for emotionality. So we're coaching the producer and we're talking about this relationship. And Facet5 language just is so powerful, because we move from talking about how they need to change.
You need to change.
They need to do that differently.
It's not about me, it's you, it's them.
Absolutely. And we move from that to understanding why it is that I'm behaving in the way I am, as a producer.
How might be me.
I can influence how I behave and show up, and therefore create a different outcome. So you've got understanding, you've got insight, you've got self-awareness, and you've got ownership happening. So that is just powerful. And then you move from this almost intellectual position where you're starting to talk about, well, how do you feel that in your body? We start to raise awareness of the individual's physiological responses to the situation. And what we find, that even the sound of their footsteps, the smell of the fact that they smoke so we can smell their clothes, all of this is triggering adrenaline and cortisol. So now we move into, okay, this is how the body's responding and what can we do about that? So we created a long-term plan to increase serotonin and acetylcholine. So that's about stability and balance and knowing that I'm enough and knowing I can deal with this, but I can do it from a point of being grounded and balanced. We also created an emergency plan, which included a strategy to reduce adrenaline and cortisol in the moment, and a recovery plan, actually, so that once you're out of that situation, you have a way just to go and get back to a sense of balance. And the outcome of these conversations is that genuinely you could see the client was happier and less stressed. Their shoulders moved from being earrings to being exactly where they should be. They managed to avoid conflict by understanding the situation, understanding their responses, understanding their physiognomy, and they created space for discussion in the coaching environment, but also discussion in the work environment. So that very, very quickly is it in practice. I think that was 3 minutes.
Much more productive relationship.
Much more.
And they're both still alive. They haven't killed each other. So which is massive, actually, from where they started.
So we'd like to invite questions, but we also have a question for you. And in chat, we would like to know what has been new or interesting from this session that you've been joining. So what has been new or interesting for you? And also, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in as well. While you're doing that, we will share some resources with you. So the first is lots of ways to engage with, firstly, lots of ways to engage with Facet5. So absolutely, if you're not accredited already, good grief, why not? This stuff is powerful.
Absolutely. I've been converted.
Physical intelligence too. Lots of ways to engage with this. So we've got some of the social media connections on the left. We've got the book by Claire Dale and Patricia Payton that is just got so much information in it.
So you can buy that. Have a good read.
Indeed. The Institute, the Physical Intelligence Institute, the first 2 months are free. So, and there's activities every week. So you can come and join these activities. You don't need to be accredited, and you can learn. You see the one on the screen is why humming is better for you than you might.
We have a bit of humming. We do. Fantastic.
Indeed. And you can also do the course as well. If you're doing the course, then mention us. I'm sure we'll get something nice in return.
Just say humming is for confidence and getting your voice heard. So if you don't get your voice heard, you don't speak up, it's a good one for building that confidence and getting your voice heard. It's great.
Good one. So lots of ways to learn more, and we would also love it if you would connect with us. Email, contact on the website or via LinkedIn. We would love to hear your questions. We'd love to talk more about Facet5 and physical intelligence. If you want to try it in a coaching session, come in and sign up for a coaching session with us. But we love to talk about this stuff. So please get in touch with us. Final activity, we would like you, please, before we move into answering questions, to unmute. I'm going to stop my share.
Yeah.
We would like every single one of you to unmute if you possibly can. And we would like you to stand up if you can. And you have been asked to do a lot of things today.
Yep.
So we want you to recognise how brilliant you all are to engage with this.
Unusual but powerful.
Unusual but powerful. On the count of 3, you are please all going to give yourself a round of applause and a whoop whoop.
Yay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Thank you so much.